Okay, so to give you a quick run through of this, um, there's a couple down at the bottom here. There's a couple down at the bottom here. There's a couple tabs that give you kind of a graphical overview. These are going to be your charts and everything. So your dashboard and daily analytics are going to give you your visual overviews of everything. Your dashboard is going to be more of a breakdown of month by month. So you can see for each of these, you're seeing a monthly layout for each year, and that kind of gives you a month by month overview of everything. When you go to 2023 daily analytics, this is showing you a daily log from January 1st to December 31st. So you actually see your daily changes through here. But starting with the dashboard here, this will keep track of a lot of different stuff. Starting off with feed consumption versus eggs. So how many pounds of feed you use versus how many eggs you collected, your feed cost per dozen of productivity, your profit per dozen. You can also see your cost breakdown. All this stuff's customizable. So if you have different cost categories, I'll show you how to edit all that as well. Weather information is pulled in here automatically. I'll show you how all that's done. Your flock age versus productivity. So this is basically taking like an average age of your entire flock and showing you how productive your chickens are at those given ages. And also this is kind of the same, but this is more so showing your average feed per dozen and how many eggs you've been getting. Your feed cost, your feed target effects on cost per dozen is basically there's a recommended amount of feed, which you can adjust to whatever you want to target. But if you are right at that one line, that means you're feeding right at the recommended amount based on how old your chickens are and how many you have. And we can see whenever we go above or below that recommended amount, how that's going to affect our average feed cost per dozen. So that's really good to kind of key on and find a sweet spot on, our profit margins and see how to keep our hens productive without giving them too much or too little grain. We also can track compost and food scraps on production. So if you feed your chickens food scraps or give them access to a compost pile, this will show how that is affecting the productivity of your hens and also the quality of the eggs. We can see we do track cracked eggs on here, so we can see if we see maybe we're giving them a lot of food scraps, but we see a spike in getting a lot of cracked eggs. Maybe they're not getting enough calcium now, so we might need to change some things up and maybe throw some eggshells in with those food scraps. Also, quantity or the cause of losses. So if you have any chickens die, you can have different categories for them, like whether it's predator, illness, whatever. And this will kind of give you an overview. So if you have a lot of chickens die from one cause, it may be something looking into, and you can make better management decisions there. Your daily analytics has a lot of the same sort of stuff here. It's just on a daily log, that's all. So we can actually, see your productivity in relation to weather and rainfall events, things like that. Also your productivity versus your different locations. So if you have multiple pastures or you're keeping them in different places and you move them around to different pastures or whatever you may be doing, whether it's like winter shelter or whatever, you can see the productivity based on locations. And this is basically what we showed you on the other page, but this is just your daily logs of it versus a monthly overview. But those are the two dashboards really. Now to get all of your information in here, you'll first start with your global data page. Your global data page is where you set up your flock. So anything with a green header is something that you can edit. So you would put the breed of chicken here, the start date, meaning the date that hen started with your flock, and then the hatch date, which is basically its birthday. So we want to find out how old it is based off of the hatch date. And then how many of those hens you started with. This will show you any losses you may have. Again, since it's not a green header, you don't edit this. This is a formula. And it'll show you how many are remaining after that as well. For your feed and the cost, this is where you'll enter any list. Anywhere in this area here, you can type in various feeds, whether you're using different feeds or there's a price change in your feed or whatever. You would just simply log another unique identifier there. Maybe you're giving scratch or something. So you can write in scratch and whatever it costs per pound. Or maybe this 16% layer feed here, zoom in a little bit. Maybe the 16% layer feed here changed in price. So we can actually say it's July and they just they up the price a little bit. So we can actually say July 2023 layer 16% and change the price to whatever it is now per pound. So there's a whole long big area here where you can add in all kind of different feeds as the price changes or as you change your feeds and use different feeds. Your cost categories here. You can see your straw, wood chips, and whatever else. If you can add in whatever you want in this list here, and that'll update on your analytics sheet, on your daily logs. For your egg cartons, this is basically the cost per carton. Again, you can, just like the feed, if you have different suppliers or price changes or whatever, just put in some sort of unique identifier here, knowing what those cartons are and whatever the price per carton is. Moving on over here, this is a recommended feeding amounts here. So this first one is basically how many pounds per day for one hen at that age in months. So if they're 1 month in age, they should be getting 0.07 pounds of feed per day per bird, and so forth and so on down to 5 months. After they hit 5 months, that's about what they should be eating as an adult from there on forward. You can change these recommended amounts as you choose, but this will be your targets. So when we see metrics like feed percent to target, that's how close we are to hitting these targets. Over here, you have locations. Again, this is if you have multiple locations in your farm or homestead, you can put, pasture 1, pasture 2, a winter shelter, winter greenhouse, whatever it may be. You can make a whole list here of different locations you may have. And then your lost categories over here. These would be like causes of death. Over here on the right is basically just showing you the makeup of your flock. So, for example, look over here, I have a Buff Orpington there and I have a Buff Orpington there, but they're different ages. We could see this one was hatched on 4/1/21 and this one was 9/13/22. So they're 2 different ages, and we have 15 of these younger ones and 5 of the older ones. So over on here, this is showing a unique list of all of the breeds. So even though I have 2 different ages of Buff Orpingtons, this is only showing 1 here. There's not another Buff Orpington in the list. So it shows me the percentage of makeup that breed makes of my flock, and the average age that that bird is, and the total number, and then what the daily feed amount is just based on that breed only. Down here, we have your starting year. This will always be January 1st. It's just a matter of what year you started on. So if you're starting, 2023, obviously it's going to say January 1st, 2023. Even if you're starting in February or March or whatever, you still make that January 1st. That'll make all of your sheets line up with the full calendar year. If you want to use this for future years, you can make a blank one of this and just change this date to January 1st, 2026 or whatever it may be. Below, it's just showing you the number of hens you have right now in this flock, the average age in months, and the totally daily recommended feed amount. And then in this green area, again, green areas you edit. So this is your price per dozen. So you can put in a price there. This will be a link to a video that I will have. I don't have it yet though. Your weather data will be collected from this website, but I'll show you that in a little later. Starting with your log sheets. So you'll see 2023, 2024, 2025, so forth and so on. These are all your log sheets. So this is starting January 1st on 2023 and going all the way to December 31st. On the sheet, just like everywhere else, if it has a green header, you can edit that column. If you see a brown header, you don't edit that column. It's either a formula or it's pulling information from somewhere else. So you don't edit anything that's not green. But basically what you would do, starting from left to right here, it first shows the date. So today's date. And the target amount of feed for that date, that's based on the number of chickens you have and the average age of your flock. So that's showing you what the recommended feed amount is based on those targets that you set. So this here is where you actually put your total feed amount. So how much feed did you actually give them? So if we gave them 23.5 pounds, but we were only supposed to give them like 17.5, that means we're about 132% to feed the target. So we actually fed a little bit over target there. Your feed used, this drop down here is going to pull from your global data page, and it's going to pull from this list right here, which is your feed column. So as you have different feeds and different pricing from there, you would choose it and it'll calculate that based on the new price, and that'll give you your feed cost. And then your feed per dozen is how many pounds of feed it takes to make 1 dozen eggs. And then here is your feed cost per dozen. So this is how much are you paying just in feed alone to make 1 dozen eggs. And then of course your feed percent to target, which we already covered. Your quality of or quantity of eggs here collected, and that's a green header. So this is one you'll actually fill in every day. This is how many eggs you collected for that day. If you had any cracked eggs, you would put whatever the number of cracked eggs are, you would put in here. And this is just showing you how many dozen of eggs you actually got for that single day. For losses, this is if you have any of your hens die, you would just put how many died. You would choose a loss category, predator, illness, other. Again, that is pulling from your loss category list right here. So you'll actually choose your loss categories, or you'll enter in whatever you want to put in there, and it'll show up in this drop down here. But after you do that, then you want to choose which breed it was. Again, like I mentioned before, I have 2 Buff Orpingtons. So I would choose that, but then also choose the hatch date so it uniquely identifies which one it actually was. Moving on to the financial end of things. This is showing you item expenses. So if you had any item expenses for any of these days, you would choose an expense category here. So straw, wood chips, whatever. Again, that is pulling from your cost categories right here. So you can make a big long list of different things you want to have in there. And your total cost, and then you'll put your item expense cost in here. So if you have straw, and then you put $6 I paid for straw that day. Your total cost to date, that'll show you your total cost that you have that you spent to date, and that's including all the egg cartons, your feed, and everything, and any expense items you may have as well. Your egg cartons used, this is where you'll choose which egg cartons you're using, and again, that's pulling off your global data right here, and it's going to pull the item cost over here based on which one you choose. So if you have a different, a price change, or you bought off a different supplier using different kind of egg cartons, whatever, you choose which one it is here, and it'll update the pricing based on that. The carton cost here is what it cost in egg cartons to get 3.75 dozen eggs packaged up. So that's showing you your cost in egg cartons for that day only. Your cost per dozen of eggs. So this is taking everything into account for each dozen. That's your feed costs, your egg cartons, and any expense items you may have. Obviously, since there was a $6 expense item this day, it's making that number a little bit higher than what you see down below here. Then you'll see your profit per dozen. And then we move into weather temperature or weather information after that. This is all automatically pulled in, well, semi-automatically. I'll show you how all that's done. Any notes you need to put, you can put your notes in here. And then here you'll put your location like pasture one, winter shelter, whatever. Again, that's pulling off of global data in your locations column right here. So you can put different locations in there. If you gave your chickens food scraps for that day, you would just check food scraps. If you gave them access to a compost pile, you would check that as well. If they didn't have access or food scraps, then you would just not check them. But this is your daily log sheet. Really, it looks like a lot of information here, but this really only takes a few seconds a day to actually enter in this information. Like your losses and expenses, things like that, you won't have those every day. Notes you won't really have every day. So literally, you're basically just coming in here. You're putting how many pounds of feed you used, which feed you used, and then your eggs collected, and if you had any cracked eggs. That's going to be the bulk of it right there. And then you can also log which egg cartons you use, location, and then food scraps or compost. So while it looks like a lot of information, it really only takes a few seconds to actually log it each day. Once you go through and you log in or log all your information for the day, you also have this aggregated data here. This basically just pulls in month by month. We can kind of get your totals or averages for a lot of these different categories, so I can actually see what was going on. These charts in your dashboard and your daily analytics actually will visualize that data for you. Now to pull in your weather data, this is your weather right here. Normally you won't have this export. I'm going to delete this out real quick. Okay, so you have your weather data here. Typically, so what you do with that is you go into your global data, you click on this link here. I think this defaults to my location, but you can change the location here to just put your zip code in there. But what you want to do here is choose a date range. Now, whenever you choose a date range, you'll want to choose at least 2 months. This is what 2023, so we want to go. So if we're in February now, even though we don't need January, we're going to choose January anyway. Reason for that being is because if you choose less than that, then this website actually spits out multiple data points for each day, meaning it'll show you like, it'll show you like an hourly intervals or, every 3 hours or something like that. It'll give you temperature readings and things like that. We just need high temperature, low temperature, and precipitation for the day. If you get multiple entries in for the same day, it messes everything up. So we want to export this with more than 1 month. So I would say 2 months or more. But whenever we export this, we'll just choose an Excel format. It'll export. And then we go to our egg tracking sample here. And when we go File, Import, and we'll upload. And we'll choose that file we just exported. And where it says Create New Sheet, we'll say Insert New Sheet instead. And just make sure Import Theme is not checked. And we'll just say Import Data. So that's going to make a new sheet here called Export. And we can see for these days here, it's January 1st, January 2nd. So we can see each day only has 1 entry. If you came in here and you see January 1st, January 1st, January 1st, January 1st, and like there were different hours, that's what we don't want. You just want 1 entry per day. So what you can do is you can copy this. You start with the second cell down, start with the first date. We don't need these headers here. And we're just going to come down and copy all of that information. And then we're going to go into our weather tab. And then starting wherever that date is, I mean, if you started in February, for example, you would start here. We're starting on January, so we'll click here, paste it in there, and you'll notice this column here is not in the right format. So the only thing we need to do here is change this format to a date. If you click that column and go Format, number and just change it to one of the date formats. I like that one. Whenever you do that, that'll update and all of your information will then fall into your weather data right here. And it'll also show up on your analytics tools, like your sheets and everything. Now you have this raw flock counts and raw age and feed data. This is all for back-end calculations. You don't ever touch either of these sheets. That's just all raw information that is used to that is used in formulas elsewhere in the sheet. So those you won't ever need. This weather export that we just did, we can delete that once we copy the information off. Next time we go to import more weather data, there'll be another one there, but we can get rid of it whenever we're done. But that's kind of a quick overview of everything. If you have any questions on it, just let me know.